Okay, I am here with the world famous Oliver Linehan / Oliver Linehan hyphen Oliver Linehan. Um, I'm gonna start with this by asking you, what is your desire for this time?
So let's start just like running through sort of like the normal typing procedure stuff. And if that sort of, I'm not anticipating any surprises. So if that resolves itself quickly, then I might have some questions I want to get to, and I'll try driving it around a bit. I'm not really sure what I'm going to end up getting out of it, but let's start with the regular typing procedure and see where that goes.
Okay, can you give me an example from your own life of a time when you let somebody um, talk you into something that you didn't want to do, but you ended up going along with because they talked you into it?
Mm, I feel like that kind of happens to me when I sort of feel obligated due to some sort of relationship thing. Like someone in my family really wants me to do something, or one of my close friends really want me to do something. So
But you just gotta be there. Like
yeah,
that.
so one of my friends, when we were taking a road trip out to Oregon, the Oregon coast, he really, really, really wanted to go see like this train depot out there, and I thought it was like the most boring thing ever. He really, really, really wanted to do it, so he sort of dragged me into doing it. So I just went along with it, and then he was getting kind of a little bit pissy with me for not really
For
engaging
your
with it
lack of
fully and as
enthusiasm?
passionately as he was. And it's like, well, I don't know. I'm just not. I have no idea what's going on, and even being here is making me feel like a bit overwhelmed and freaked out because there's train stuff everywhere. It's not very pleasant.
Did he try to explain his enthusiasm for trains to you?
No, no, this didn't stay a thing very long. He just sort of acknowledged it and we just moved on.
Okay. Um, so when you got there, you weren't pleasantly surprised. Hey, you know what? I actually really enjoyed looking at these trains.
No, it was actually worse than I thought it would be.
Okay. Did you have but you had low expectations going
I
in,
had
didn't
my
you?
expectations were on the floor.
Okay. Wow. So that
It was
this
really
training that
there's
must
some
really have just been like the most boring. It's like the boringest
yeah, you
train.
walk in, there's some guy there, I'm convinced he's probably an ESTJ. He just starts yammering about every single little item in the entire shed. I'm just sitting there and it's 90 fucking degrees.
Is he explaining what they were used for and how they were used to accomplish things?
Uh-huh.
Wow. A
And my
TE
friend was just
lecture.
like, my friend was like, "Oh yeah, this is really interesting." He just didn't understand that. After like 10 minutes of it, I just walked outside because I was like, I can't handle this
A
anymore.
TE lecture in a sweltering shed.
And then he walks
That
out later.
sounds
He's
like
like, "Oh, don't you
heaven.
want to come back inside?" It's like, no,
And then after the train place, did you guys go to hear somebody discuss escrow and other real estate matters? That would be the only thing I can
no,
conceive of
no.
would be
After that,
more
we went and did
boring.
more interesting things. I got a little bit more. I started driving us around a little more after that. I was like,
Okay,
okay,
what was your favorite? Assuming that was among your least favorite moments from that trip, what was your favorite moment from that trip?
yeah. So there's this state park out there that's right in the northwest corner of Oregon. There's a bunch of beaches right there. There's like a sunken or like ship ruins right off the coast that you can see. And then there's this hill that you can just sort of climb up right to the top of, and you can like has a really wide 360 vantage point where you can see the forest in the background. You can see the little road that comes out to the place, and you can see the beach. You can see way out into the ocean. And it was a really clear blue sky, and we just sort of climbed up there, and we just I don't know, we just sat there for a while. But it was like this really big sky, big vantage point experience that was really cool. It's what stands out to me.
Um, one memory that stands out to me from my life was when I went to Russia not that long after it stopped being the Soviet Union, and walking into Red Square and seeing the that famous St. Basil's Church there as the snow was falling. It was very striking. It like burned its image in that moment on my brain. So I feel you about that certain vantage point viewing, looking at things, and it's just like, wow, I can't believe I'm here, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was exactly like that.
So did you guys chat a lot on this long drive? I'm assuming you came from the east.
No, so we're just up in the Seattle area, so it wasn't that
Okay, so you just
long
went
of a trip
south.
down there, but it was a
Went south.
bit of a ways south. Did we chat a lot? I assume so. I don't know. There were definitely long periods of silence.
You didn't have the radio or music going?
We had the radio on for a little while, but got tired of it after a while, so we turned it off. We had a little while we were chatting, and then we had long moments of just kind of silence too. I suspect this guy is like an ISTJ or something, but I don't really know.
That's what I was gonna guess based on
Yeah.
the train thing. You know, my friend Cameron, he's got this video of just this long series of videos he took of like tanks and stuff as he was driving by this military depot. Anyway, okay. Do you believe in ghosts?
No.
Do you believe in aliens?
Aliens, aliens I'm kind of 50-50 on. It's like, well, seems like most likely there are aliens somewhere just because there's so many. I mean, the universe is just so huge. There's such an incomprehensibly large number of planets and solar systems out there. It seems almost inevitable that there should be at least a few more with life on them, but I don't really know. I wouldn't argue that position.
What do you think about UFOs? Do you think UFOs, there are any UFOs that have been aliens?
Mm, probably not, but I don't know. I don't really tend to think, oh, the government's keeping all these secrets from us. So I suspect that it's possible some of them have had aliens on them, but I don't think anybody knows that and is hiding it.
The thing is, the government is keeping shit tons of secrets from us, but here's what people don't seem to realize. Almost all of them are mind-bogglingly dull.
Yeah.
Do you believe in Sasquatch?
No.
Okay, why don't you believe in ghosts? Explain to me your justifications or your reasoning for not believing in ghosts.
I've never seen anything presented to me that makes me conclude, yes, there are ghosts. So I sort of take the default of, no, I don't believe there are ghosts. That doesn't mean I'm going to assert there definitely aren't ghosts.
What's your standard of proof? What would be sufficient to prove to you that there are ghosts?
It's kind of a difficult question to answer.
Would you have to see it yourself versus seeing it on a video?
It would definitely be more convincing if I saw something myself. But even then, I'd probably have a hard time convincing myself that I wasn't hallucinating. The thing with the video is I'm definitely not hallucinating the thing on the video, but it's like, well, anything on video, you can sort of film to be a little bit deceptive. You can
I
put
think
off
for
the,
myself to be fully convinced, I'd have to see what's clearly a classic ghost, right? Like white,
yeah,
foggy person looking thing. And I'd have to be able to get my camera, film it, and then other people will be like, you got to fake that footage, but I will know I didn't fake it. So then I can
yeah,
verify what I saw by looking at it again on the phone. If you had all of that, you'd have to believe in ghosts, right?
yeah. At that point, you wouldn't have a
Yeah.
choice.
Okay, let me ask you some TI questions. If some ghosts are real and all real things love cheese, is it necessarily the case that some ghosts love cheese?
Yes.
If only Sasquatch believes in ghosts and some things that believe in ghosts, like bananas, is it necessarily the case that some Sasquatches like bananas?
No.
I think it's yes.
Wait, can you repeat it?
If only Sasquatches believe in ghosts, and some things that believe in ghosts, like bananas, is necessarily the case that some Sasquatches like bananas.
Only Sasquatches believe in ghosts. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because the fact that it says only suggests there's more than zero Sasquatches that believe in ghosts.
Yeah.
And therefore, since some of those that do like bananas, and the population of those that do comprise only Sasquatches.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let me ask you about this. Do you think it's more important that the people around you be kind to you or fair with you?
I mean, it kind of depends on who they are. But in general, I would say if they're really close to me, it's probably more important that they're kind to me. But if it's some like stranger, I probably prefer them, or even not necessarily a stranger, but even someone who's just like less close to me, I'd probably prefer them to be fair to me.
Okay, let's turn it around. Or let me ask you this: is the reason you say that about the people who are closest to you is more to be kind? Is it because you're assuming already that they're going to be fair? Choose between the instances of them being unkind and instances of them being unfair.
Hmm. Yeah, so I guess people who are that close to me are probably have already demonstrated a large degree of capacity to generally be fair. So,
Okay. Talk to me about fashion.
um, I don't know. It confuses me a little bit because I'm not super. I'm just generally not that much of a big fan of visual aesthetics and stuff. I remember growing up, like I wouldn't notice if people got like new shoes or if they got like a new haircut or something. And like I don't know, my brother used to get kind of like mad at me for that. Like he'd want me to like notice his new shoes or something. And I'd ask him like 2 months later, like, wait, did you get new shoes? He's like, dude, I got these 2 months ago. So it's just like I don't really tend to notice that stuff in people.
Okay. Let's say somebody was wearing a particularly ugly outfit, and ugly enough for you to make note of it. Would you be able to explain why it was an ugly outfit?
No, I probably wouldn't.
Okay.
There's definitely moments where I notice like particularly bad outfits, but I wouldn't really be able to explain why.
If you're watching a movie, do you notice when somebody's not a particularly good actor or actress?
No, I just don't really care. I don't think, but
Do you notice when in a movie or TV show the writing's not very good?
yeah, they're like really sort of overplayed tropes. I'll
Okay.
tend to pick up on that.
So you want so the first thing that comes to your mind is a failure of a piece of media is a lack of originality.
Well, I think the first thing that would come to mind is if it's just like cringe somehow.
Okay.
But if it sort of passes the cringe test, then I probably look more toward originality.
Okay. What makes you more angry at yourself? When you accidentally hurt someone's feelings or when you have to start something over because you skipped a step?
Mm, I know both of those things make me pretty mad at myself, but when it's that when I hurt someone's feelings, it's almost like this sort of shameful thing. That's like, oh shit, now I have to live with this and process it for a little while.
Hmm.
Whereas if I fail or if I have to start over with something because I did something wrong, it'll be like a quick like, God damn it, and then I'll just sort of forget about it.
Okay. Um, and how do you feel emotionally right now?
Uh, I don't know. I guess I was a little bit nervous going into it just because it's sort of like a new setting. But right now, I just kind of feel engaged with what's going on. I don't know. I don't really feel any emotions right now.
Okay. So can you talk to me about what kind of media you watch when you're not watching things that teach you something?
Yeah, so I watch a lot of soccer. I don't know if that counts as media, but like if
Yeah, that
I'm
counts as media for sure.
okay,
Soccer. What do you like
yeah,
about soccer?
I kind of like well, let's start with sports in general. The fact that it's a sport just means it's like there's something kind of real to it, and I just have like a whole bunch of like experience built up with it where I can like analyze it as I'm watching it and sort of understand what's going on. So to that extent, it's like okay, it's something I understand that I'm confident with, that I sort of know how to engage with, and I find it exciting, and I find sort of the emotional aspect of it pretty exciting too, I guess.
Okay, so are you interested in watching like whatever soccer game happens to be on if it's a good game, or are you interested in specific teams?
Um, I'll watch whatever's on if I have free time, but I also follow like the local team here, the Major League Soccer team here. So I watch their games. Then
The
otherwise, I'll
Seattle
just watch whatever's
Sounders?
on. Yeah,
They're pretty good, huh?
yeah, they usually are.
Okay, cool. So let me see. Let me ask you some NE questions. Do you How many different synonyms can you think of for the word concubine?
Mm. Mistress, um, whore,
Okay.
uh, woman of loose morals.
Okay. Anything else?
No,
Paramour, lover, side chick.
yeah, okay.
Um, let's see what else we got. Uh, friend with benefits. Um, fuck buddy. Uh,
Sidekick?
what's that?
Sidekick?
A sidekick. Concubine's not really a sidekick. Cum dumpster. Um. Anyway, all right, cool. So far, I'm not hearing or seeing anything inconsistent with what I thought you were. Do you want to segue into directing the flow of this conversation more, or do you want me to continue along?
Continue on a little bit longer.
Okay. Can you talk to me about your relationship with procrastination?
Yeah, so I used to like put everything off to the last. Like when I was a little kid, I just put everything off to the last minute because I wasn't planning anything I was doing, and I just didn't want to do stuff right away. So I put everything off to the last minute. But I managed to like sort of get stuff done. As I got older, I got a little bit better at understanding how long things were going to take me, and understanding that if I had a whole bunch of stuff like piled up that I all of a sudden had to do, like that would weigh on me a lot even before I started doing it. So I got to the point where I could plan out what I was going to do and when, to the point where it didn't become a huge problem. But like if I don't have a deadline for something, but there's still something that would be beneficial for me to do, I rephrase that. So if there's something that's beneficial for me to do where I don't have a deadline, I will put it off indefinitely if I think there will be too many steps to accomplishing it. And
Okay.
those too many steps can be something as simple as I'm going to have to open up a bunch of tabs on my computer and enter my email address or find passwords. So
Right.
yeah, it's like
So is part of the issue there that you're not sure how long that process is going to take?
I'm not sure it's that as much as it's just like it sounds like a pain in the ass to do.
Right, sure.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a pain in the ass, I'm sure, to anybody, pretty much.
yeah.
Okay. What do you think is more important in your evaluation of people in your life? Their usefulness to you or their reliability?
Reliability.
Okay. How about reliability or socially gracefulness?
Reliability.
Okay. Would you say that the thing that makes you lose respect for people most is unreliability? Or would you say it's something else?
Unreliability is one that kind of makes me mad at people. Well, it'll make me mad at first, and then it'll make me lose respect for them if they like repeat it, and then it's just like, okay, this wasn't even a one-off thing. You're just like that. But
Okay, what happens if you know that someone in your life lies sometimes? Like not maybe about not very consequential things, but like embellishes their stories, stuff like that. Does that bother you a lot?
how believable are their embellishments? If they're a good storyteller, then I don't care. But
Okay.
if they're if they're
If you can tell it bothers you.
if I can tell, it kind of bothers me. Yeah, because like, well, I kind of want to call them out, but maybe I don't. Because if I call them out and they start getting defensive, then it's like, well, now I don't
Then
want to do this.
you've just escalated the awkwardness.
Yeah.
Um okay, let me see here. All right. What makes a good feature film?
A good feature film has to have a compelling storyline that appeals to a broad demographic of people that would be like, I guess, universally appealing in some way. And it has to have all the other stuff has to be at least good enough, like the acting and like the visual aesthetic components all have to be at least good enough. And then the storyline and the plot, the storyline and the plot's what really matters in terms of whether it's going to be a good feature film or not.
Okay. All right. Do you like watch if a film is very good but also sad, do you want to watch it?
Sure.
Okay. What's your favorite genre of film? If you think of normal genres like action, comedy, drama, um, science fiction, superhero.
I tend to like thrillers and I like horror movies.
Okay, horror movies. One genre I didn't even name or think of. What do you like about horror movies?
I don't know. I just sort of like the adrenaline of it, you know, like sort of the constant feeling of suspense and wondering what's going to happen. Sometimes it can be a bit overdone.
Mhm.
Like sometimes you see horror movie and it's like, well, this is half horror movie, half sort of like slapstick comedy, where it's just like super overdone. I don't remember. I'm thinking of one movie in particular, but I can't remember which one it is, and it was a long time
Is
ago.
it Pinata Island?
No,
Have you seen that one?
no, I haven't.
It's very scary. The typical group of college age sorority and fraternity mix people, right? They go to have some sort of hazing kind of thing on this island, but it turns out that there is a possessed pinata that's been possessed by a demon on the island.
Very scary.
Yeah, very scary. Okay.
Just
Let's see here. How many eggs are there in a baker's dozen?
13.
Correct.
I don't know.
I don't know what made me ask that question. What do you think about the Beatles?
They're quite good.
Do you have a favorite Beatles song?
I wouldn't say I have a favorite. I like I've Just Seen a Face.
Interesting one name. I've just seen a face. He said, "Here's that one." We were just talking about a song earlier tonight. In fact, we sang it in the car together. Anyway, I like that one too. Do you have any creative outlets?
Not consistently. I've dabbled in like poetry a little bit, but I never really consistently apply myself to anything like that.
Hmm. Did you know that Mary had a little lamb?
She did?
Yes, her fleece was white as snow. These are important things you need to know before you write poetry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And you obviously listen to at least some music, the Beatles, for example, but you don't play any music?
No. I dabbled in like piano playing a little bit, but I never really got into it, and I never like wrote my own stuff. Or I sort of like try to write my own stuff and it's like, yeah, it's kind of difficult and boring.
The problem with piano is that they're so stationary.
Mm,
You know, and if you get a keyboard, it's not the same thing as a weighted keys piano, you know.
yeah.
Okay, so do you feel as though you'd like to be more creatively productive, or you don't really care? You don't feel it's a necessary component in your happiness?
I don't really care yet. I sort of have this idea like maybe in 20 years I'll care, but right now I'm just kind of
Do
focused on other things.
do you have a long-term goal or more than one
Creatively or in general?
in general?
In general, well, I'm working towards becoming an actuary, which I'm hoping to do that within the next year. That would be like full-time employment. That would allow me to get like settled down and allow me to really get started with adult life stuff.
What did an actuary do?
They work with insurance companies at like using data to make predictions and set policy.
Do you like that kind of work?
I like statistics and data. The actuarial stuff is a little bit boring, but I don't hate it, and it pays pretty well, and it's not that difficult.
Okay. It's got a lot of math in it, or what?
Yeah, it's pretty mathy.
Okay. And does that feel satisfying to you when you successfully solve math kind of things?
Hmm.
Okay, cool. Um, what do you think about it when people come up to you, or in general, you encounter situations where people are saying, "Here's the singular truth to the exclusion of all other possibilities"?
Well, I'll always be skeptical of them, but if it's sort of sometimes it kind of sounds right, and then it's like, okay, I'll be skeptical, but I'll keep it in mind and watch for it. Sometimes they're just obviously bullshitting, and I'm just like, well, there's so many different counterexamples I could come up with that defeat whatever rule you're proposing. So I just can't take you seriously anymore.
Okay.
That's
Can you
what it is. Like 95% of the time when someone's coming out and was just like saying, this is the single truth, this is the one truth, everything else outside of this is wrong. 90% of the time they're bullshitting.
Oh, I'd say 99.9999999%
Yeah.
of the time.
So it's just like, it would be
But
very, very unwise to be anything but skeptical of anyone who comes at you with claims like that.
well, if it's a general thing, you know, the broader the claim, the less likely you should put credence in their assertion of singular
Mm-hmm.
singular jurisdiction, explanatory jurisdiction or something. But cognitive functions are the exception to that rule. Okay. I mean, me and cognitive functions are the exception. So, okay. I am still hearing this, what I thought you to be already. I'm not anything in conflict with that.
All right.
I haven't really, I guess, directly asked you TE questions. Let's try a couple of those. Can you first break down taking a shower into the correct number of steps in the correct order?
Yeah, sure. Take off your clothes, turn on the shower, wait for the water to get to the right temperature, step in. That's kind of a bad step. I lost track of how many steps I was at too.
You were at 4, but thank you very much for demonstrating what makes me not have to go, well, you know what, maybe I should question that. You seem very much ISFJ to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't expecting anything different, but I thought it would be interesting to have it all on video and published so other people can say whatever they want to say.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't mind continuing to run through typing protocols, but also I think it might be interesting if, given that we've kind of confirmed this, you could either talk for a little bit about how previously determining that you were ISFJ had impacted your movement through life, self-concept, dealing with other people, or how cognitive function understandings have in general.
Yeah, so when I first sort of found cognitive functions, the first thing I immediately thought was, oh, I'm an INFJ. Because it's like, you see like the videos and the ones who are actual INFJs, like Frank James. It's like, oh, they're saying all this stuff, and it's like I'm relating all to all of the FE tool stuff.
Right.
And then there's not really that much distinction being drawn between SI and NI.
But you successfully typed yourself, right? You were the one who told me you were ISFJ, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that is right. So after running through all of the stuff for a while, I found your stuff, and it's like, okay, well, I'm clearly SI, not NI, so I'm not an INFJ. So it was like, okay, so I'm either an ISFJ or an INTP. I'm definitely not an ENTP or an ESFJ.
Right.
So I got typed by Stacy just to see. I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure I'm an ISFJ, but I might be an INTP as well. So I got typed by Stacy because his was a lot cheaper than yours, and he offered to do it for like $30, and he published it.
And what did he type you as?
He typed me ISFJ pretty quickly.
Okay. Well,
so I sat with that for a little while, and I decided he was right.
Yeah.
Sure.
He was right. He was right.
Went along through the world.
That's very interesting. The thing is that I find really interesting about ISFJs or into typology is that SI DOMs are particularist in their knowing, whereas typology is a very NI kind of a thing. But I think because you got FE, which is the most communicative of all the functions as your tool function, that it compels the ISFJ to have a much more, at least to be more open to NI stuff than say an ISTJ.
Yeah, that might be right. I don't know. I have a hard time. This is probably textbook 8th slot, but it's like when I start trying to like talk about my own relationship with NI, it just starts getting kind of jumbled, and I don't really know what I'm talking about anymore. Even if I can like think through. So I guess, I don't know, to me it feels like with a whole bunch of data, SI just kind of converges to NI in the long run within a given topic. Like you start accumulating enough experiences where you figure out where your experiences are misleading you, and you can sort of extrapolate from that what kinds of situations are the right ones to trust your own experience and which ones you should be a little more open and sort of wait for the NI to come to you. And you just, over time, that process gets pretty good. So you end up being able to intuit a lot of things within the areas where you have sufficient experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. It's it's kind of the brute force way around intuiting.
Yeah.
The way around filling in the gaps in the puzzle with intuition is to brute force out all the pieces one at a time, And it's like for SI Dom, you're especially attuned to learning and being shaped by what you learn. And SI fourth, I have to keep recreating the same thing until I hear myself say it in a lot of different ways. Then I finally really sticks in me, But regardless, as far as the knowing aspect of it, it's I've been very much slow to learn a lot of NI shit because SI fourth is not nearly as robust at taking away the lessons from things as SI Dom is. So okay, do you feel as though type descriptions of ISFJs are wrong, misleading, reductive?
In general, I'd say yeah, but it's like I don't really care. It's like, if people want to. Part of the reason I don't care is because I see myself as an Oliver Linehan. I don't really see myself as an ISFJ. I'm just
Right.
moving through the world. So if someone wants to say a bunch of like wrong things about ISFJs, it's like I don't care. It's like they're not saying it about me.
Right.
I can just go in
Right.
and talk to them, and they could have no idea. Like I'm not going to go announce my type or anything. Like I don't care. I don't attach any
They're
identity.
also almost certainly not actually talking about ISFJs because almost certainly their understanding of typology in general is totally wrong.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Okay, so now you feel like obviously you're pretty clear on your own type. You've settled on. You've been thinking about it for a long time. Do you feel as though now at this point the only additional utility for typology for you is in understanding other people?
I guess. So I don't tend to think about it much when I'm out like interacting with people. I find it a little bit distracting if I do. But I feel like there's sort of other things that are more important to pay attention to while you're actually talking to someone. But sometimes if I'm reflecting on some conversation I had with someone or my general experiences with someone, I'll try to figure out what type they are to sort of better understand why whatever is happening. And I guess it sort of leads me to be a little bit more compassionate and empathetic toward other people. So it's like, okay, they're not actually as stupid as I think they are.
Yeah. With increasing understanding of attentional manners, your response to people shifts from "you cannot be this mind-bogglingly stupid" to "wow, this attentional stack is so alien to me,"
Mm-hmm.
which is a lot better. Really.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about the general well-being of humanity or something, the latter is preferable to the former.
It's weird because it's like, NI is my 8th slot, but for me, 90% of the like NI polar is by far the most mind-boggling one to me. Because it's just like sometimes NI polar people will just say stuff that comes out of nowhere, and you have no idea why they said it or what's leading them there or how they possibly could have come to that conclusion.
Well, it's because they default to assuming that the answer to some perplexing thing is within their experience. So, like, when I had this, when I was like 14 and I did not smoke cigarettes yet, my dad found this cigarette cellophane at the back of the driveway. I could not convince him that it was not mine. He's like, well, your mom and I did, or either your mom or I left it there, so who else could it be? Like, I do not know where the cigarette cellophane came from, but I'm telling you, I had absolutely nothing to do with it. Probably blew it down the driveway from the street or something, I don't know. But he wouldn't believe me because he was absolutely convinced that the only way that cigarette cellophane was there is if one of us, 3 people who lived there, left it there. And it wasn't mom or dad, so it must have been Eric, even though it definitely was not Eric. That's defaulting to assuming the answer to the question is within your own experience.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. I'm glad it's never really been leveled at me like that. If it was, would have no idea how to respond.
I mean, I remember it to this day because unlike other things that my dad might have done that would bother other people, like yelling at me or getting mad at me and something. If I fucked up, that didn't bother me. But that one, it stuck with me and bothered me because it was like there was no way for me to resolve the matter because I was hitting him right in his polar.
Yeah, okay.
Let me take a short cigarette break. Ask Rachel to come over here and chat with you a bit, and maybe if nothing else, get from you some feedback on how you'd like the rest of our conversation to go, or what other things you'd like to touch upon. And I'll be right back after I smoke a cigarette.
All right.
Hi, Oliver.
Hi, Rachel.
You look so much like your icon photo, except for your hair. Is your hair blonde?
It's sort of. It used to be really blonde. It's just been getting less and less blonde since I was about 15 or so. I'm 22 now. But
It looks pretty light in the lightning that you're in right now.
Yeah.
And that happens to blondes, a lot of blondes too, is that they have blonde hair when they're younger and then it darkens as they get older. But I can still see it. I can still see it in your hair.
Yeah.
So what are some of your frustrations, if you have any, with TE?
I guess it's just sort of. I guess the nature of having TE is a blind spot. It's like with FI6, it's like, okay, it takes you a while to figure out what you actually want because you're just not really thinking about it or prioritizing it most of the time. So after all this time, you'll sort of find out what you want, and you already have all this other like SI, TI information, and with fifth slot, you sort of have the SE ability to push through things. You might have enough NI experience or SI experience to have some decent NI intuition about whatever you're going for. But it's just like with all of that, you have all of that, and then no idea how to get from step 1 to step 2. So that's sort of how it plays out as a frustration thing, because it's like, well, I already know where I want to be, and I know why I want to be there, and I know that I have the willpower to get there, and I can see that it's a good path, but I just have no idea like where to start moving.
You just explained exactly what I went through when I was choosing colleges. I had to physically go to the colleges to decide whether or not I wanted to go there or not. But I didn't do the paperwork. My ESTJ mom did all the paperwork because I had no idea. Fucking no idea.
Yeah.
I hope Eric doesn't get a strike for me cursing. And I'm sorry for cursing too. It's not.
Oh, I've cursed 4 or 5 times in this, I think so.
Okay, good. That makes me feel better. Do you ever find FE exhausting?
I think when I was younger, I did, because I had more FE obligations. It's sort of for the last few years, especially during the pandemic, I just didn't really have any FE obligations. So I could just sort of, if anything, I felt like I wasn't FEing enough. Like I felt like I wasn't able to use my tool function enough just because everything was shut down. So I couldn't go out and like talk to people or do things except over the internet, which is, to me, maybe it's because I'm a censor, I don't know, but it's like, it's just not quite the same thing as interacting with people in real life.
No, I definitely get that. Actually, the times in my life when no one was around and I was alone, I wanted to talk to people the most. I needed that. I needed that too. Yeah. How about NI? What about NI for you? Like, are you very particular about like certain subjects?
I'm not really sure exactly what you're asking, but I guess my relationship with NI in general is that I don't really tend to notice it, or it's not something I can voluntarily like access or like, okay, what's the NI truth here? It's like it'll just occur to me when I'm thinking about something and I'm like thinking through the process. It might be the 8th time I've thought through the same series of ideas or the same thought process, but it'll just hit me what the actual like truth of the thing is. And it's like, it's this big like moment, like, whoa. And then you sort of
That's
realize, and it's like, why didn't I realize it sooner? And oftentimes there's a great deal of frustration that I associate with that, because it's like, if I had realized this a lot sooner without all this delay, I could have fixed it and done something about it, and I would be in a better place now. So I kind of associate a lot of regret with it. It's like, if it would just kick in a little bit faster, I could have a lot more success. But it's just like the NI always lags behind what I want it to be.
that's fascinating.
You know, my friend Dave Porter has recalled to me on a few occasions a story which I now interpret as him having an NI, essentially a conscious and semi-conscious NI moment on drugs, which was, he was on drugs one time and they were listening to music and they put on Judas Priest and he was enjoying it, and then they put on Led Zeppelin and he realized all of a sudden how much better Led Zeppelin was than Judas Priest. I would call that an NI moment. Do you have an equivalent tale?
No, I wouldn't say so. I don't know. I mean, you know how the 1/8 is with being able to recall examples of the thing, right?
Right, yeah.
So
Well, that's why I was asking. Is I was wondering if I think that's very much an anomalous instance for him. It's the only
yeah,
the only example of that kind of story I've ever heard him tell, really, where he seems to be consciously recalling NI. So I was wondering how you would do that. But
every
okay,
time
cool.
you ask that, it's like I have this. I can relate to the experience. It's like I know I've experienced this before, but I literally can't think of any examples of it happening.
Well, that's cool. I like it when things validate the explanation.
Yeah.
So do you have any questions or areas you'd like me to ask you about or anything like that?
Yeah, so I guess one thing that sort of has been weighing on me for a while, basically since I figured out like what my type is, so it's been years, is like there's clearly a lot of different sort of manifestations of all of the types in terms of how they display. Some of them are a little more dramatic than others. Like, I don't know, like ENTJs and ESTJs, they all kind of seem to look alike each other to some degree, especially ENTJs. But it's like, I don't know, with ISFJs and INFJs and like ISTJs, you'll have instances of them that look completely different from each other. And it makes them kind of difficult to type at first. So I'm like, do you have any ideas for like what sort of explains that?
I don't have any ideas about why or how much visual cues can be trusted to link to typing. It is the case, I've noticed that, for example, when I watch Naked and Afraid, I can kind of tell by looking at somebody when they're an STJ, especially women.
That's interesting. That's not really what I was asked. I was using looks like in a less literal sense. I
Oh,
just mean
okay.
like
You meant their affect in
yeah,
general.
yeah.
Okay. I mean, I would say that first of all, let's eliminate from the conversation people whose affect is different because of some sort of abnormal psych thing. Like,
Okay.
either trauma in childhood or a mental illness like schizophrenia or something. Let's eliminate them from the discussion because they skew the question too much. So for people who have normal psychology, one would presume, I don't know how exactly I would test this. I haven't paid that much attention to it, but one would assume that there's a wider display of displays among people who have SI higher up than there is among people who have NI higher up, because SI is a learning function and those people are shaped by their experiences more. So like you and CJ are both very knowledgeable about typology and intelligent people and interested in typology. That's not necessarily going to be the case for a lot of other ISFJs, and it depends on what they got into and started directing their dominant learning function towards. So even though it's an abstract, it's a mapping kind of a thing, and that wouldn't normally be expected to be an attribute of an ISFJ, because the nature of SI, it very well may be. Whereas like in NI, there aren't going to be any NI DOMs who are into driving around town and looking at the supermarket like bent can section.
Okay.
But you know, the thing is, as far as variation in terms of affect, in some sense, there's even in the SI types, their variations are in the particular things that they're into or talk about or whatever. They're not really that different in terms of affect. You know, there's a video premiere right now, which is a typing session I did earlier. That guy was an ENTP, and he didn't speak English as his native language, but to me, I don't know if it's going to be this obvious to third party. To me, it was very obvious the way that he and I paid attention in the same ways, and our processes of thinking about things were the same, and everything like that. So, I think when we note a variation in affect between different instances of the same type, a lot of times we just haven't gathered enough data on the two people to recognize that they're not that different, actually.
That's an interesting thought. Have to sit with that a bit.
The problem with going with that line of thinking is then the conclusion is, well, then write some good type descriptions that actually articulate those commonalities that you can reliably assume are going to be there. But people remain open system creatures. They can hear your explanation of those commonalities, and especially SI types can find particular examples in their own life that either agree or disagree with those. And the question then becomes, well, does that represent the norm for you, or is that anomalous?
Yeah, I don't know. So I guess for me, like when I was looking through the descriptions, it was like, I guess the reason I started gravitating more toward INFJ was because like the ISFJs were described as like, you know how they are. It's like they say they're these super loyal traditionalists who
says that?
Order in the home, you know, some nonsense like that, and it just misleads people horribly.
Like, you know, I saw a video title earlier today by this lady Winses, who purports to be an INFJ, and it said, why INFJs tend to overshare. What could be wronger? The type that is least likely of all 16 types to overshare is the INFJ. They've got neither subjective epistemology function conscious. They don't have the SI willful enough to share a bunch of stories about themselves. It's a crazy, insane mischaracterization of INFJs that is 180 degrees wrong by this lady who's probably not an INFJ, but claims to be and has been making videos about INFJ shit for years. Just polluting the world with her misinformation.
You'll have one video that says why INFJs overshare, and then right below it, there'll be another video by someone else why INFJs never say anything.
The
And you look
second
at
one
that,
is the
and
one
it's
you
like,
should watch. One of them is correct. And the
yeah,
other
one
one
of them's
is
right,
wrong.
one of them's wrong. But if you're like an outsider who doesn't know anything, and you just
You
Google
just think,
and
oh,
just
this is just
YouTube search
bullshit. People say,
INFJ video, and it's literally two contradictory things that are both claiming to be the same thing. It's
and
like,
if you're
no wonder everybody
subjectivist,
hates this.
and if you're a subjectivist and you want to self-identify as an INFJ, instead of noting that you've got contradictory things here, you pick the one you want.
Yeah,
And you go,
exactly.
see, I am an INFJ.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's
That used to make
terrible.
me really mad. Like, I used to get genuinely mad when I'd like see videos and I recommended that would be like that. And it's like I stopped caring so much in like the last year or so because it's like other stuff started happening. You know, like during the 2 years when I couldn't do anything because of the pandemic, I just get really mad about random stuff. It's like, yeah, since life sort of started again, it's like I don't really care anymore. That
Yeah,
stuff's just
COVID was fucking
dumb people being dumb people.
this ontological illness on every single person in the world, just about. You can find some people who are like, actually, I loved COVID. I got to settle in and potter around the house. I do my, but for the vast majority of us, it was a fucking nightmare. It did so many harms that people just aren't counting because they don't include a corpse. Ridiculous. Okay. Any other areas we want to cover here?
I don't think I have anything else. I don't know about you.
I just want to say, I guess, in general, that ISFJs, like, well, for example, CJ mentioned during the live stream of his typing that he's in good company because you're so smart. So the thing is, don't people of the world, do not underestimate ISFJs. My mom was a brilliant writer. She's an ISFJ. My friend Dave Porter has made some brilliant visual arts. He's an ISFJ, and he's a very busy being musically creative. I wouldn't say his talent particularly lies there. I think it lies in visual arts, but regardless, he's as creatively productive as I am, if you count all instances of playing music and or making visual arts creative. He's at least equal to creative productivity of me, and I don't even have a job. So I mean, ISFJs are interested in interesting things, and they are as they are as intuitive as their learning makes them be, depending on what they're learning. You know, if an ISFJ is devoting themselves to learning how to correctly map reality by cognitive functions, by talking with famous people, like, how you're so young, you're so empowered with a correct frame of reference to understand reality, and you've got so many years to operate under that correct frame of reference. And since you become what you learn as an SIDOM, ISFJs have the potential to be extremely powerful, but it's critically important that they not be abused as children. I mean, that's true for everybody.
Yeah.
But SIDOMs especially, they can't put that shit behind them at all.
Yeah. I had a good childhood, so
I'm
I don't have
glad.
anything to worry about there. But
Good job. Good job having good parents and a good childhood.
yeah, best
Congratulations
decision
to
I ever
you.
made.
Yeah, it was the best decision you ever made, for sure. And also across the board, I always think that ISFJs are delightful. They're very likable. They're very pleasant. They can engage with you about interesting topics, and you know, they're disarming in their affect almost always, because there's something warm and familiar about ISFJs. Maybe that's the ENTP saying that, but I think most people would agree.
Probably.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop this recording. You're cool with me publishing it, yeah?
Yeah, you can publish it. Just don't like type out my last name in the title.
Okay, I'll put typing session OLine.
Yeah, you can do that.
Name in the corner.
Now he just doesn't want it in the title. It says.
Oh, okay.
That way people can't like search for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. So I'll put this up and schedule for tomorrow morning probably.
All right, cool. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. Have a good evening.
Yep, see you around.